Those shots you just saw had all the same settings for the cinematic video look. I'll give you my 3 tips on how to shoot cinematic video with the Canon 90D. Of course, you can also apply those tips to other cameras as well, but maybe the settings and the details will sound a little bit different then. Also, before we start, I use right now my field recorder, which I've been showing in another Felix Reacts episode. And let me know in the comments maybe what you think about the quality. Also, please watch until the end to see my number 1 tip for shooting cinematic videos on your DSLR camera. Alright, perfect. Let's come right away to number 3. Plan your shots ahead of time. This tip is gonna take some time beforehand, but it will pay off afterwards because you have actually more time for the actual shoot. What I mean exactly by planning ahead is simply that every shot needs slightly different settings. For example, the frame rate. Not every shot has the same frame rate. If you know, for example, that you're gonna slow the video down in post, then make sure you crank up that FPS number so that you don't have that jittery feeling and that jittery video footage afterwards. Also, don't forget to turn your camera into manual mode so that you have the full access to all the settings. I'll recommend making a little note which will remind you of all the things you wanted to shoot or set up, such as what aperture to use. So, do you want the background to be visible, or do you want to have that nice bokeh around it? Or for example, which shutter speed should you use? So does your subject move around very quickly or not at all? Or even how to expose your video. Do you need to bring your ND filters, or is the location maybe in a nice shadow? Also, if you want to know more about those ND filters, I'm gonna make a video about that, of course, also if you want to. So by making the notes beforehand, you can focus on the actual shooting part and on delivering the best possible shots. Now let's come to number 2. Dare to use the manual focus. I know, it sounds very intimidating, but try it out. Switch your camera into manual focus or your lens, for example, and explore the world of pulling the focus. I would still recommend using autofocus when you're shooting events or something so you don't miss the important action. But if you're shooting like a little cinematic sequence for your own hobby or your own YouTube channel, then sure, try it out. By using the manual focus, you can be way more creative, and it opens so many new doors and possibilities, whether to decide what you want to show or maybe reveal in your video sequence. Here's a quick tip for using the manual focus. Turn on the focus peaking so you can see on your LCD display what is in focus, what exactly is in focus. And that way it will also help you to learn while you shoot how to pull the focus accordingly to that. Number 1, use 30 FPS in a 24 FPS timeline. This is the last tip and also my personal favorite tip and most important tip when it comes to shooting cinematic sequences. I recommend creating a timeline and a sequence in 24 frames per second and have the default FPS in your camera set to 30. That way you have it automatically set like it in case you forget it one time. Of course, if you want to shoot something even slower, then use a higher FPS and write it down in your notes so you don't miss that. Also, as a little reminder, please don't forget to set the shutter speed always twice the amount of the frames per second. So for example, for a 30 FPS video, use the shutter speed of 1/60th of a second. That way you will achieve the most natural looking motion blur and it will look way more cinematic and less jittery. This 30 FPS trick will boost your cinematic videos in such a big amount. By slowing the video then down to 24 FPS in post, the video will automatically be slower, smoother, less jittery, less shaky, and more dreamlike and cinematic looking. Of course, this trick doesn't work if someone is talking in your videos in front of the camera, because then the timeline would be shifted, the audio timeline and the video timeline would be shifted apart from each other, but usually that's not the case in a cinematic video. After you have that all edited, you can see the result and how smooth it looks. So if you're using a 24 FPS video in a 24 FPS timeline, the video is basically transferred one by one and it looks exactly the same as you recorded. By using the 30 FPS, you slow the video slightly down, which makes it so much smoother. Alright, perfect. There you have it, my 3 tips for shooting cinematic videos with your DSLR camera. Please let me know down in the comments if this was helpful to you and maybe if I missed anything that you want to add. I will reply and heart your comment as always. If you want to improve your editing and filmmaking skills, then subscribe now to get notified about new content every week. Thank you for watching and don't forget to share also this video maybe with someone who you think he or she might need some help with shooting cinematic videos. Also, please check out the outro to see more of my own videos. Thank you for that and see you in the next video.